I mean,
So which,
I don't know, because I switched that on.
that's off right now. Do
Can you
want
hear
this?
anything now or no? Because I did switch that on, but I don't think maybe. It
Oh, you
doesn't
switched
have-
on earlier?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Maybe.
That looks like that's for the inputs. So that would have been for this guy, in theory.
Should we plug this in? Here, plug this back in. Okay, yeah, we're gonna plug it back in.
It was Woodstock.
It was Woodstock. It was Woodstock. And then, you know, as the town was the last day was supposed to be a day of rest. And we said, forget that, we'll get away. We did, at 6:30 at night.
I have to say, like, thank you so much.
Friends,
All right.
I've received the thumbs up from our audio visual lady. No, excellent, nice work.
Thank
No
you, Audrey.
problem. Hoping it,
Thanks, Kate.
everybody just
Thanks,
crossed
Kyle.
their fingers. Okay, so we have conducted a roll call. We have determined a quorum, so I'd like to call this meeting to order, the June 28th, 2023 special board meeting. Item number 2, are there any changes to the agenda? Actually, technically, no changes to the agenda are permitted because it's a special. Item number 3, remarks from visitors. Remarks from visitors is your opportunity to address the board on any issue. When called upon, please come to the center position in front of the commissioners. Speak loudly, state your name for the record, and speak directly to the board. Keep all comments under 3 minutes. This is not a question and answer forum, so please do not expect a response or an answer from the park board this evening. If you're prepared to share your comments in writing, you may use the comment cards which are available near the sign-in sheets. Any park district staff will accept your card to be shared with the board. Do we have any public comment? Susie?
The microphone should work.
Well, that's what this is talking about. But I like the little format. I can see most of you from the center. Okay. Can you hear me? Is it working?
We can hear you, but I'm not sure if
Yeah,
it's
that's what
working.
I want to make sure. I don't want to touch it. I mean, I'll hold a mic and walk around, but those booms aren't hearing me either. Okay? Is it working?
He's checking the speaker to make
It
sure it's
doesn't
on.
sound like it's working.
Wait a minute, he's checking the speakers.
I'm gonna wait until Christina gives me the okay.
Should be good. Susie, if you'd like to give it a try.
Give it a try.
Sure. Is it working?
We can hear you. I think the question, Audrey, if you don't mind, just verifying that the diligent,
Yes, this is all working.
okay, perfect, so they can hear her if she
Okay.
speaks. Speak loudly, just in case, we don't want your words to be lost.
Oh, I hate to scream.
I know. It's okay.
Usually I would prefer to, I'm Susie Schreiber, Winnetka Park District resident. On behalf of the general public and the residents of the Winnetka Park District, I respectfully request that all discussions during regular, special, and executive session portions of the Winnetka Park District are recorded in full in both audio and visual formats. You should direct immediate funding towards obtaining and installing proper audio and visual recording equipment to meet the confirmation of this meeting area. This is an immediate need. 2, please have all discourse during regular, special, and executive sessions done respectfully, follow Robert's Rules of Order, and know that in a true democracy, divergent positions can and should be explored and discussed thoroughly following policy and procedure for this elected body. And I know you're trying to do it, and there's evidence today, but just on, from all of us, please, we support you, we want to go forward, and we want to make sure that those who can't come can clearly and easily hear it. And thank you for your efforts.
Thank you,
Thanks.
thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to make a public comment? Okay, we'll move on. Oh, sorry. Oh, Mary.
Oh, this is nice. Mary Garrison. You can't hear back there. I
Okay,
can tell you it's not.
it's not working. Okay.
Um,
Speak loudly, Mary.
Just a couple of things. One is Elder. You know that people are still gathering in full force at Elder. Maybe last weekend, 100 people that I could see down having a good time. And there's no protection there for them if something happens. I think you've looked into this, but it seems to me that we could have a security person cruise by. Secondly, the stairs at Lloyd. We're halfway through the summer, and I'm still not seeing any action on the southern portion. The survey was interesting to me. I did take the survey, and then I wanted to get back in, because I'm only one person, but you could do two if you want, but I couldn't get back in with my number. Is that the way it's supposed to work? I know you can't answer my questions, but I couldn't get back in. And what I wanted to do was look up when all the parks were listed. Some of those are not Park District parks that are even in our survey, and I was just curious why we're listing parks in our survey that are not Park District owned parks. And that's what I was trying to find out, but I couldn't get back in, so that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Would anyone else like to speak? Would anyone else like to speak in public comment? Okay. I don't see any hands. We'll move to item number 4, new business, Elder and Centennial Beach Project. Consideration for the Testing Service Corporation proposal to provide geotechnical engineering services for the Elder Lane and Centennial Beach project. May I have a motion to approve the proposal from Testing Service Corporation dated June 6, 2023 to provide geotechnical engineering services for the Elder Lane and Centennial Beach project with TSC's cost of services not to exceed $46,300.
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Excellent. Any discussion? Yes.
I had just wanted to share a question I put to Costa this afternoon for the benefit of the group related to the fact that the soil boring proposal only reflects soil borings on the land side, so it is not including soil borings out into the lake at all, because I guess that they would be much more costly. But contrary to some of the things that we discussed previously, this soil boring study, as I understand, and Costa, you can jump in and correct me, will not answer questions like how deep is the clay layer out further toward the end of the breakwater, as well as, I forgot what I was going to say, how deep it is out there, and also is there any lake bed down cutting?
So to that point, the soil borings that are being identified in the scope of work there are 10 soil borings on the beach themselves. They're going to be off the seawall on the beach. We'll be able to gather information as it relates to the clay in that zone. You are correct. There were 2 additional borings that were identified about 30 feet out into the water, one at Elder and one at Centennial. Due to the cost to mobilize the equipment for that, basically renting a barge to put the boring rig on and to service that was estimated to be about another $100,000 to do that work. After review with Matt Wright and the information that we have and the information that we'll obtain from this, they'll be able to render a decision and understand the slope of the clay, because the clay layer for the distance we're going out is not going to change much. It'll be a variance of maybe a few feet, but they'll be able to get the information that they need for soil loads and understanding of the composition of the soil or the soil depths as well, to further information that they need for structural load limits on the rock and also the steel driven for the site. So staff is comfortable with what's been presented, and if there's further questions, I can answer them as it relates to erosion, or in this case, lake bed down cutting, without a control point, we have nothing to go back to. So this potentially could be a control point for us, and if we took soil borings in the future, we can then verify that versus what we have today. This is something that takes years to, to accomplish as far, or to happen, the soil, or the erosion down cutting, the lake bed down cutting. But we would be able to use this data compared to that data to see if there is changes in the soil composition and the lake bed clay layer as well. So that would be something, this would be a baseline information to go off of.
May I just ask a question? As I understand, we're doing 4 borings on Elder and then 6 on Centennial. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And again, I'm still trying to understand why we are doing the work on Centennial.
Sure.
For someone who's not technical, Costa, what I'm trying to understand is, Centennial really is phase 2 and phase 3. So why are you doing this now on Centennial?
Centennial is phase 1, 2, and 3. So the way that Elder is set up, primarily the majority of the work is Elder, but if you notice for phase 1 and what we've designed, there is shoring up of the seawall, the integration of the off-leash dog beach, the outcropping of seawall that going in with that, along with the Noah stone for that. Those are all part of phase 1 as identified in phase 1. So that would give us the information that we need for now, and then also have information for phases 2 and 3 later if the park board so decides to move forward with those additional phases of work.
Then, do I understand correctly that you will use this for purposes of driving the steel sheet piling?
This would be serve both functions. Yes, steel sheet piling as well as the understanding as far as the depths of stone and where we would need that to run better calculations to help not only with design, but help bring our cost estimating in tighter too.
Thank you. And then I have a comment. It's my understanding that last Thursday, published in the Chicago Tribune, were 3 notices of proposed zoning ordinances to be discussed at a hearing on July 6th. Because we don't yet have our property exchange agreement concluded, because it appears that we now have even more uncertainty on all of this, I continue to question why we are expending funds and why we simply don't delay all of this until we have a better understanding of where we are. As I heard from Commissioner Rapp during the last meeting, we are over our budget as far as our consulting services this year by, what, 100,000? Am I correct on that? I'm bad with numbers, folks. But where I am on this is I continue to believe that this is not, at this point in time, due to all the uncertainties, a prudent expenditure of our taxpayers' dollars. And I just wanted, I know I'm in the minority here, but I feel I have a duty on behalf of our constituents to express my opinion. So, thank you.
I have a comment. Phase 1, as outlined a few meetings ago, includes Elder and Centennial. There has never been a question of Centennial being excluded from the overall project. And the overall plan, phase 1, excludes altogether 261 Sheridan.
I understand that, Commissioner Lessin.
Your first question did not actually understand that.
Well, what I was trying to understand is initially, as I understood why we were doing the core borings, it was to help to understand what we would do as far as the stone breakwaters. That is what I understood was the reason for doing this work.
Can I?
Yes, certainly.
No.
You can also repeat
Yeah.
the comments that you made before, because I think they're pertinent also.
Elder is approximately 410 feet, Centennial is 520 feet. Add the 70, that's how you get the 1,000 feet end to end. The soil borings, as recommended by TSC, through inner workings with Matt Wright, are equally spaced. Winds up with 4 on Elder, 6 on Centennial. Mobilization of the equipment is a significant expense. The soil borings are exceptionally deep. I can't remember these down, 60 feet. Those soil borings are principally to determine the composition and structural integrity of the clay into which steel sheet piles will be driven. We need to know the structural integrity so as to know how deep those piles, how long those piles are, how deep they need to go to be able to sustain the loads and perform the way they're intended. Once we gather this information, it's ours to forever for whatever projects, but it's in the zone of the steel sheet pilings. Less to do with the rubble mound break wall, because the rubble mound break wall is sitting on the clay, whereas the steel sheet pile is being driven into the clay. So if it's loose, if it's unconfined, if there's a layer of clay, and then below, 10 feet below that, there's more sand or silty stuff that isn't supportive, they'll find that out. So it's very beneficial. It's necessary for the structural engineer to be able to perform his or her work, and it'll be useful to us in whatever project proceeds.
Thank you.
May we have a roll call?
Commissioner James,
Yes.
Commissioner Rapp,
Yes.
Commissioner Root,
No.
Commissioner Tyson,
Yes.
Commissioner Lesson,
Yes.
Commissioner Kodo.
Yes.
That motion passes.
Costa, I think you have an update on steel sheet piling at Centennial?
Correct. Just wanted to, as discussed at the previous board meeting, board had requested staff to follow up on a couple different fronts to make sure that we had indemnifications in place, that our attorneys had an opportunity to write or take a look at this, sign off on the request, and making sure that everything was lined up the way it would need to be for the Park District. Since that request, the Park District did fulfill all the requests, Park District staff from the board that evening. We circled back with the design team, finalized the design plan, and executed on the timber wall removal and the installation of the 8 feet of steel sheet wall. This is a great opportunity. This was something that the Park District definitely benefited from, and no cost to the agency, and with no obligation to the agency. So just want to report that project steel has been driven. The earthwork has been backfilled. Topsoil will be placed, and bluff seeding will be taking place by Park District staff here shortly. And we will finish up getting the project closed out in a matter of a couple weeks. So,
Thanks, Costa.
but
I know that was time sensitive, and I appreciate that.
very time sensitive. Thank you.
Okay.
Just a question on that.
Yes.
I have asked for copies of the documents.
They are
And
available for review at the end of the meeting.
So
Yeah, they're available for review at the end of the meeting. They executed them all.
Copies will be made available to commissioners.
Yeah.
If you'd like a
Oh,
copy.
we're sorry.
Copies of the, thank you, Susie. Copies of the documents will be available to the commissioners at the end of the meeting. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, all available. Yes. Question?
Just a comment, for what it's worth, I was down there today, looked at it, looks great, absolutely the right thing to do. Tied in, when the Park District installed the seawall in 1987, for whatever reason, it was 8 feet short of the property line. And then it returned back towards the bluff. And that remaining 8 feet was a dilapidated, much less robust, rotting wood with steel supporting it. So driving that 8 feet of steel, connecting it to the Park District steel, completed the protection at the south end of Centennial. It was a great move on the part of our neighbor and a nice neighborly gesture.
Thank you. Okay. May I have a motion to go into closed session?
Before we do that, may I ask a question of Costa? For the benefit of the public that's here that may have been on holiday during our last meeting and may not have stayed up to speed, can you explain that what happened there was our neighbor was the one who provided this steel sheet piling on the Centennial? Is that correct? Is that
Yeah.
what happened?
Basically, the way that Warren summarized it, exactly the way that it happened, correct? Yes.
And-
As a courtesy to the Park District.
And
Yeah.
will this be a contribution? Is this what we're looking at here? Is this a contribution to the district?
We have a donation letter that Adam Simon worked on with Council for Orchard 2020.
Yeah, and there are no obligations whatsoever.
Other than, I would think the board would want to approve the donation.
Well,
but-
when we discussed it initially at the June 7th meeting, we set a list of criteria, No obligations, donation, cost savings, supervised by Park District, correctly permitted. Each of the agencies
Thank you.
needed to be contacted and admitted, so.
And then at some point, each commissioner will have the opportunity
Correct.
to review what
Correct.
we determined.
Correct,
Okay.
exactly. Okay.
Thank you.
May I now have a motion to go
So moved.
to go into closed session pursuant to 5 ILCS 120/section 2C1 for the employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body. 5 ILCS 120/section 2C5 for the purchase or lease of property. 5 ILCS 120/2C6 for the setting of a price for sale or lease of property, and 5 ILCS 120/2C11 for litigation when an action against, affecting, or on behalf of the particular public body has been filed and is pending before a court or administrative tribunal, or when the public body finds that an action is probable or imminent. Motion, please.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
second, excellent. Any discussion? Excellent, may I have a roll call?
Commissioner Rapp?
Yes.
Commissioner Root?
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson?
Yes.
Commissioner Lesson?
Yes.
Commissioner James?
Yes.
Commissioner Koto?
Yes.
That motion passes.
Thank you.
Can I confirm we are not intending to do anything when we come out of closed session?
Correct.
Okay.
So we are entering into closed session, sorry.
That's it?
6:26. Right. And exit.
Okay, nice, Denise. Class act.
And you end the video.
Audrey.
Way to go.